Hi everyone, and welcome back to our webinar series for the AV Sports Fund. Today we are excited to welcome you to our first in a series of masterclasses we're calling The Case for Sports Investments. Over the past several months, we have taken dives into discrete topic areas such as performance technology, the media landscape, team ownership, and NIL in college athletics. With this masterclass series, we hope to zoom out a bit and look at sports investing more broadly to share why we believe it can be a valuable part of a venture portfolio. At the AV Sports Fund, we are building our thesis behind the idea that sports is an enduring societal pillar that can act as a powerful conduit into several large industries. We see performance technology used by elite athletes reaching scale and becoming part of the consumer health and wellness platforms. We see sports as a critical asset in the media that is driving innovation and broader media consumption. And at the end of the day, we see athletes and teams provide valuable credibility to products ranging from consumer goods to enterprise software, helping give consumers confidence in the brands they are putting their money behind. Today, we are excited to look at sports industry with Mohit Pareek of Drakestar. Drakestar is a technology-focused investment bank that has developed a specialty in sports and media and has become known for its quarterly Drakestar Sports Report, looking at transactions in the space. Mohit is the primary author of the report and joined us to share his insight on the momentum of the sports industry and his enthusiasm with the early signals of what's to come. Spoiler alert, despite a general stagnation in tech M&A markets in the past year, sports saw a major increase in activity both in the number of deals completed and the dollar volume transacted over the first half of 2024. We hope that you enjoy the conversation with Mohit and become as excited as we are about the potential of sports as an investment area. Before we get started, a reminder that in the course of our conversation we will be speaking a bit about Alumni Ventures, our sports fund, and our views on the associated landscape. This presentation is for informal purposes only and is not an offer to buy or sell securities, which are only made pursuant to the formal offering documents for the fund. Please review important disclosures in the materials provided for the webinar, which you can access at www.av-funds.com/disclosures. This webinar will be shared after the event, and we encourage you to submit questions throughout the webinar or afterward, and our team will follow up with you via email to provide answers. Now enjoy the conversation. All right, everybody, welcome. As mentioned, we are joined by Mohit Pareek from Drakestar, one of the primary authors of the Drakestar report, which just came out. If you're interested in sports, it's kind of one of the leading references for people in our industry to look at the state of the industry. So I want Mohit to be able to tell us about that, and really just talk about why we should all care about sports investing as part of your portfolio. So without further ado, I'll let Mohit introduce himself. So to kick things off a little, could you tell us about your background, your role at Drakestar, and also how your firm has positioned itself in the sports world?
Absolutely, and thank you, Kieran, and appreciate you inviting Drakestar and me over here. Delighted to be here and sharing our insights on the sports tech and the general M&A and financing market overall. But I'll kick off with a brief introduction about Drakestar and what I do for Drakestar. So Drakestar, you can think of us as a global middle market investment bank that only does tech and digital media transactions. So very, very specialized. I have done over 600 deals in tech with 8 offices across US, Europe, and Asia. New York is our headquarters. Me and few other people are based here in LA, and then we have other offices in San Francisco, London, Paris, Munich, Berlin, Geneva, and Dubai. So pretty widespread, and we are known for our cross-border deal expertise, whether it's US versus Europe or vice versa. So we take pride in the fact that we have such a big ecosystem of buyers and investors to go to when we are marketing a particular deal. As I said, we are primarily a tech bank, but tech is, of course, is such a vast sector. Then we have people who specialize in their own verticals. So, but we do all sorts of transactions, all the way from B2B enterprise tech companies to consumer internet companies. And I am a principal at Drakestar, and I look after our sports media and gaming practice. So sports technology is a key part of my focus. Gaming, which is obviously now there's a very blurred line between how Gen Z consumes content versus goes to events versus just overall experience. There's a very thin line and blur line between gaming and non-gaming or sports. So
Yeah.
that puts me in a very nice mix of different entities to talk to and looking at different trends. So very, very excited to share some of that here. And I've been with the firm for close to 10 years, so I'll be completing a decade. So hopefully, the journey continues to be as productive and the experience keeps being as pleasurable as it is.
Yeah, so almost a decade. First of all, congratulations. But second of all, um, I think it's really cool because you've probably been in a front seat to be able to see the maturation of sports and media and gaming and those kind of industries. I think one of the most interesting data points in your recent report is how big of a year 2024 has been so far. And so, can you help us contextualize kind of the activity you're seeing at kind of that M&A stage specifically, but all the funding stages, um, and maybe what like some of the major trends and why this segment is capturing some attention in the investment space?
Absolutely. And thanks for reminding of the report. And as we do these quarterly sports tech focused reports that talk about M&A financings and valuation trends in the market and kind of have been getting all the positive feedback. Would love some criticism too at some point, but hopefully we're doing a decent job at this point. So yeah, so coming back to sports, I think it's the biggest asset class out there and is the most favorite and read out segment at this point.
Mm,
So when you talk about sports as an asset class, while back in the day, I'm talking 20 years back, it used to be a trophy asset category where people were investing just because of, big families,
yep.
lifestyle. But now it has become a very serious, more professional, lot of technology coming in.
Yeah.
And it's the sector where pretty much a lot of money can be made. And we as an investment bank, we are in the heart of, doing M&A deals and raising financings. And 2024 has by far been one of the biggest years as of now. So we are going to be coming up with our H1 report very soon. But just overall, I think just looking at the first half of the year, we're looking at over $34 billion of deal activity across M&A and financings in public market. So that tells you the size and scale the sports technology market is operating at.
Yeah.
And this doesn't even consider, the club deals, which
Yeah.
are multi-billion dollar deals. But that's a separate segment. Streaming rights is like, a different asset category
Yeah.
itself. Netflix buying, $5 billion worth of media streaming rights. So those deals are over and above all these numbers that I'm quoting you.
Yeah.
And first half of the year itself, we are over 200 M&A deals, over 300 financings. So that tells you the scale at which, these activities are being done.
Yeah.
I mean, we both know Endeavor's acquisition by Silver Lake was
Mhm.
one of the highlights of the first half, a $13 billion transaction. The second largest will be Formula One owners, Liberty Media, acquiring Dorna Sports. So they're
Yep.
going to replicate the same playbook that they have in F1, which they grew multifold
Yep.
once they acquired it from CVC a few years back. Then you're looking at few other transactions, including, Reliance Jio and Disney combining their forces back in India.
Yep.
Some might say it's a loss-making proposition for Disney, but I feel on a long run, Disney is going to benefit by this deal because now they're working with the biggest media house. Eventually, that's going to become the biggest media house in India
Yeah.
with the backing of Reliance. And long term, they're going to make much more out of this deal than what they have got initially, which is looking like, their investment as of now was not the most lucrative outcome. Then you're looking at few other deals. DraftKings has been very active. Jack Pocket deal that's more into the sports betting side
Yep.
as the markets are opening up. I think that segment is going to be one of the key sectors to watch for. They also acquired an analytics firm, then just acquired Simple Bet. So there's a lot more activity on that side. And I can keep talking about that, but I'll stop on the M&A, go
Yeah.
into the financings. So roughly $2 billion are raised. You know, the icing or the biggest deal of the half year was obviously Equinox raising 1.8 billion, but that's a debt transaction, so not
Yep.
part of that 1.9. But that tells you how much the market has grown. Back in COVID when Equinox was really struggling, now they're back in market, grew 30%, a big chain, raising 1.8 to refinance some debt, opening new centers. So that tells you that health and fitness sports side is growing a lot. Riddell raised 400 million. That's more onto the helmet technology,
Yep.
and yeah, I mean there's a lot more that's happening. And on the streaming side, on the media side, Minute Media raised $100 million. They also got the Sports Illustrated rights. So there's a lot more happening there.
I think one of the things that stuck out to me in looking through the report is that the narrative we've heard in broader venture capital and Alumni Ventures is a very diversified firm, the same way that Drake Star has a bunch of different verticals that it touches. But the narrative we've heard for the last 2 years is that I think a lot of activities slowed down in financing, late stage especially, and there's been almost a freeze in M&A IPO activity. And what I see in the report is there's actually a huge step change in the first half of 2024 in sports. And I think it's really working against this trend that there's been slowdown. And to me, it's a huge signal of the appetite here, right? When everything else is slowing down, there's actually a ton of activity building in sports. And the way I think about it from our perspective is we kind of position sports as like it's kind of this enduring societal pillar. It's been around since, the original Olympics in Greece or there's kind of the stories of Mayans or Aztecs kind of playing games with balls and hoops that's reminiscent of basketball. Like sports has been around as long as humanity's been around in many ways. And I think this ability for it to really see growth during a tough financing time is really impressive. I don't know if you have any comments on that. It's not exactly a question, but like any thoughts on that?
Right. No, I think you bring in a very interesting viewpoint about the financing market. And I think to be very candid, the financing market overall in tech um, has been a little bit challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as quick and easy as it was back in the COVID period where technology was really moving and every piece of technology ecosystem was getting all kinds of, uplift. Um, I mean, the biggest beneficiary of the COVID period, you can say perhaps was gaming, as I kind of also
Yeah.
look after gaming as an asset class. And you guys have invested in a bunch of those
Yeah.
companies too. Um, that industry got 5 year worth of growth in 1 year.
Crazy. Yeah.
So it went from 2020 to 2025 in 2021.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well said.
so there is so much capital that came in. There is so much, revenue that came in. The industry made 5 year progression in 1 year, and now it's gradually getting to a point where things are normalizing and the
Yeah.
growth is slowing down.
Yeah.
So it's not really growth is slowing down in a natural curve. It's just that there was an unnatural curve for first 2 years,
Yeah.
and now you're suddenly back in this phase where you are trying to find the next level of growth, which is not going to be same as what you had back in COVID. So that's a challenging perspective for a lot of these mid-stage companies
Yeah.
specifically. Um, and I'll take a step back and say early stage versus mid to late stage, it's a completely different ballgame.
Mm.
So when it comes down to early stage financings, venture capital or general investors are taking a bet at a very early stage of a business, but those
Yeah.
bets are smaller.
Yeah.
And at the same time, some of these, very interesting um, companies, they are solving a problem that just coming up there and becoming a key hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier to actually see how that money gets deployed and what it is solving for. And it's a business cycle. So you
Yep.
you fund a certain amount, the business grows to a certain point, and then it's a next inflection point. And
Yep.
at that point, you need bigger capital, other things. So early stage is still very, very interesting.
Yep.
And sports, I tell you, it's a passion, right?
Yeah.
It's loyalty, it's excitement.
Yep.
It's not, I mean, you can change houses and spouses, but you don't change your loyalty to a
That's
team.
that's that's a bold claim. I I don't know if I've talked about this in any of our series, but I spent the first part of my career playing basketball in Europe and got some exposure. The one that always sticks out to me is Serbia. If you're from Belgrade, the city's pretty much split between Partizan and Red Star fans. They have a soccer presence. Basketball's huge there. And people tell me I got a little bit of insight into it, but it's like you're either born into a Partizan or a Red Star family, and that's just the way
That's
it
it.
is. And so I think I think you're hitting on something which is, again, one of kind of the macro trends we see here is this is a passion area that actually I always look at talent flows in some of the areas that we look at. And what I often see is people who are really successful in their first endeavor. Maybe it's a healthcare technology, maybe they're a tech person at one of the big companies. If they get a little breathing room in their career, they might take a personal passion and build a company in the sports space with all this skill they've gained at Apple or Google or a hospital or something like that. And so I think it's another fascinating dynamic where there's a ton of talent flowing into the sports space. It's very passion driven. And I think one of the spaces that we see this show up is a lot of deal activity, I think, especially early stage, and fan engagement in media. Can you talk about the growing presence there? I think a lot of people think of sports as like making great players better, and that's an interesting thing, but like fan engagement in media is a huge driver in this industry. What insight do you have there?
No, are you that again, it's a very, very interesting area within sports, fan engagement.
Yeah,
What do you, I mean, fans engage and engaging those fans is the most tricky part in today's world,
yeah,
right? I mean, back when our parents used to be big sports fanatics, they would go to games, they'll have, parties for the whole day,
yeah,
and those things were different. But now Gen Zs and millennials, um, or the next generation, whatever you're calling them,
yeah,
it's just hard to really get them interested in
yeah,
sports, first of all, because there are thousand things that they can do
yeah,
than going to a game. And then at the same time, their consumption patterns are such different than what you and I have. I
yeah,
mean, I come from India and cricket is a religion, right?
yeah,
I would watch 5-day test cricket
yeah,
every day
yeah,
because I had that kind of a consumption pattern. But
yeah,
now you have all kinds of social media, all kinds of interactive experiences you can have. So getting a fan excited about a game before the game, during the game, and after
yeah,
the game is really fan engagement revolves around. And
yeah,
it's very important in today's times because while the sports personalities are much closer to fans, but they only can access them through Instagram or social media.
yeah,
So the whole ecosystem of sports personality, the teams, and also the venues, bringing all of them together to get a fan excited is really fan engagement in my perspective. And
yeah,
the biggest the biggest thread between them is emotion.
yes,
So how do you get someone engaged before the game? How do you make that experience seamless in ticketing, buying a ticket?
yep,
Like, is the platform going to break if there's a event happening? How do
yeah,
I get to my game? Where do I park? How do I
yeah,
find my seat? During the game, do I get you know notifications for stuff, merchandising,
yeah,
food, engaging with the game overall, replays, clips. Then once you're done with the game, getting back to your place. And you and I think about game for like 2 days, but I think the new gen will think about that for an hour. So
yeah,
how do you keep them excited
yeah,
and make them have the same, experience and viewing pattern? Like I would go to a game, come back, watch the post game analysis, watch the highlights once they're live
yeah,
on the TV, and
yep,
then I will go back 2 days back and rewatch the same thing. But that's not the time anymore. So how do you
right,
get them to do all that? Is really where it comes down to, and
yeah,
VR mixed reality is playing a key important part in that.
yeah. I think it's really fascinating because of all the stakeholders, right? You mentioned not included in the report, but these franchise owners, team owners, the people who run leagues, right? They all have a very vested interest in growing share of wallet in this economy, right? And that looks different today, as you mentioned, than it did 10 years ago. But there's technological solutions. So, for me coming from the background of an athlete, again, I think of sports as the product on the field or the court, but to the owner's eyes or to the rights holder's eyes, it's the entire thing. And how do we extract value at every little piece of this, from things as mundane as ticketing and parking, all the way to exciting things like highlights, immediate fan engagement, all that stuff. So, like, I think there's a ton of opportunity to create value in this space for technology. And that's why I think you mentioned that early stage funding is becoming really critically important. Is like, how do we seed these ideas so that something does work its way into value creation mode for these bigger entities? one other thing I wanted to talk about, even though I kind of glossed over it, but performance analytics and wearables is still a reasonable chunk of activity in this market. Um, One of the trends that we look at is sports is kind of a conduit to larger markets. And so when I think about this, it's not just serving the elite athlete. They already have kind of the best of the best at their fingertips, but it's serving the general population. We're even translating sports into like a population health play. How do we use something like Whoop to get people moving more or monitor their blood pressure or monitor their heart rate, these things. But like what insights do you have about the performance analytics, the wearables, kind of that human-based performance segment of this market? What are you seeing that's kind of been interesting?
There is a ton of innovation in that space.
Yeah,
And I think you rightly pointed out that the top of the top athletes have a very sophisticated elite class of, technology available to them. And then you go down to the youth level or
yeah,
generalizing level, there is a different set of technology that comes into play. And then, you know, for an athlete like you probably are using Whoop and few other things. For someone like me, who is a decent enough individual who looks after health, I
yeah,
would probably do like an Apple Health
yeah,
or some other product. So there is a different layer between each one of them.
sure.
But I think overall, if you talk about the most sophisticated innovation coming in, that's in the performance analytics. So I will just drop in a name, Spideo. That's a
Hmm.
company based out of Sweden. We just raised a growth financing for them, and they do performance analytics for athletes.
Cool.
So it's primarily a motion capture technology that they use during training, during the games to really
Yep.
tell you how your athletes are performing.
Yeah.
And then there is a next layer to it, and they do a lot of AI in it. So it's very fast paced. It gives you some predictive analytics. And then comes down the layer of predictive analytics where there are technologies who will tell you how likely a player is to get injured in next two games or next game or the
Mhm.
game after, or at what level of performance they're gonna play
Yep.
on the next game based on their sleeping pattern, based on their training patterns, based on how they feel at this point. So there's so much technology going into it.
Yeah.
um I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes, he is a Whoops
Yeah.
mascot,
Yep.
and he has invested in that business too. But that's a great technology out there. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think anyone does better sleep tracking than Whoop does.
Yep.
Then comes down to, some of the other players like Zone 7, which was just acquired by Swexa.
Hmm.
Um, they do the next level of AI based predictive analytics.
Hmm.
So you're talking about the working with Manchester United, La Liga, and few franchises to really bring out that area of predictive analytics to know how the game is going to go for a team or a league.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that's coming in. I mean, Apple, no one thinks of them in that way, but their Apple Health platform is
Yeah.
actually a gigantic platform with, I think, with the new iOS 18 and Apple device 10 or whatever they're calling it on the watch side, is actually doing sleep apnea testing.
Interesting.
So those are the things that are coming up. So there's a lot more happening here. And I think some of these athletes at the top level are also, and I'm sure you're going to touch upon that at some point in this conversation, but they are also tracking this innovation happening, and they are being part of the journey for that,
Yeah.
particular um, company to make it successful,
Yeah.
get them to market.
Yeah. I mean, we can even touch on it now briefly, but I think one of the really fascinating things you talked about passion earlier, right? Patrick Mahomes being a Whoop ambassador, you can't take that for granted, right? There's so many people across the country, young kids. I mean, I remember idolizing players. There's so many kids that idolize Patrick Mahomes, and if that's the impetus you need as a parent to buy your child a Whoop or buy yourself a Whoop, like these things make a difference. So I think seeing athletes as culture creators and sports is a very consumer centric segment of the market in a number of ways. In a number of ways, it's very enterprise based, but like there's a lot of elements of it that are very consumer centric, and they have some of the most powerful faces in the world at their disposal when you're in the sports space, from soccer players that are globally famous to a local star or whatever it is, there's a real lever to pull there in this industry. So I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, like take an example of Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi, right?
Yeah.
Messi, he just launched his sports tech fund,
Yep.
right? So he's already working out there trying to bring in some of those interesting concepts to market. Cristiano, starting from, investing in UFL, that's the name of the gaming thing he's doing. He put in $40 million
Yeah.
to a lot of other things, and he's like the epitome of fitness, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that just tells you how much um, these athletes who have the mindset of being, being the face, being driving a lot of, this cultural, they're bringing culture together, and I think I love it, even though some of these bigger guys may not invest all the capital by themselves,
Yeah.
but just having a presence and being an advocate and being an ambassador brings in a lot more cultural impact.
Yep.
And I think that's good for overall. And I think that obviously fuels the sports tech market, which is, I think, is amazing at this point.
Yeah. You're kind of it's a great segue to I think about like leading indicators, right? You mentioned earlier the M&A activity. You were just talking about Apple, fortifying their health platform. A lot of that's done through acquisition of different tech tools or capabilities. Just in that little segment of the market, we see Garmin, adding some technology. We see now Whoop or Oura Ring getting to the size that they might add technology or get acquired by a larger tech player. But in the spirit of like kind of leading indicators, talk to me about how you see the M&A market and the exit market as like showing the future potential of where sports could go as an industry. Again, thinking from the perspective of an investor, what does this information tell you? Like, are there opportunities out there for investors that are investing early now? Is this showing us what the future could be a little bit for the activity later stage?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think nothing can be better leading indicator than M&A activity in the space when it comes to investing in a particular space.
Mm,
Um, and M&A just going gangbusters,
yeah,
growing, quarter by quarter,
yeah,
year by year. It just tells you the kind of innovation and consolidation that is happening in the sports tech market. So really, really interesting. Everything is happening starting from media distribution rights, right holders to, you know, sports services companies to digital media side to, uh, the technology innovation across fans, athletes, and management.
yeah,
There is a big ecosystem developing of these M&A deals being led by strategics as well as the private equity firms, right? So as the sports get more and more professionalized, as we just saw NFL allowing private equity investment going into
yep,
them, these teams and franchises, I think it just tells you that there is so much capital coming to play.
yeah,
It's going to create more and more need for professionalization, institutionalization, and also technological innovation, because the thing that would take you a day to do now with technology, you can do it in minutes.
yeah,
And that's a great key asset. And
yeah,
anyone solving a problem in this whole ecosystem, whether it's a grassroots problem of picking up the right talent,
yep,
all the way to picking up the right platform to actually go and put your content on, whether it's a amateur UGC content or a professional ESPN content.
yep,
There is so much happening everywhere, and all these strategics in the market, you can say traditional players to new edge players like, Huddle to,
yep,
Genius to whoever, Pixelot. All these businesses are built on a technology platform, technology as the thesis behind the whole business,
yep,
and they are looking to continue innovating it. And
yeah,
there are, other entrepreneurs who have a smaller business or a business that is competing in those with those businesses. They are very open to, kind of picking up those assets because they can actually take that business, put the right amount of capital, right kind of resources, and the distribution channel to
yep,
make it 3 times in 2 years time frame, which on a standalone basis that business would take a lot longer and a
yeah,
lot more capital.
yeah,
So it just drives, the shareholder value across the chain, right?
yep,
that's why the innovation is bringing in a lot more M&A activity,
Yep.
because a, a particular problem solving that will take you 5 years to develop in-house, you can actually buy it in 4 months or three
Yep.
months.
Yeah.
Um, and then you can save all that money and you can go to market with that asset, which is already proven and has a
Yeah.
go to market already. So it's just more about scaling. So
Yeah.
that brings in the point that this is why early stage investment is very critical.
Hmm.
Um, and that tells you, that thesis is that if you invest early into a business, especially in the sports tech where there's so much happening already, there is a very growing amount of confidence that with the right set of people doing the kind of things they promised to do with the amount of capital they got it for, I think there is a very good chance that they're going to succeed in their journey. And there is a more and more inclusion happening,
Yeah.
and sports continue to, the funnel continues to be bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just not about going to a game or, watching it on TV. It's a lot more. Everything
Constant.
is
Yeah.
becoming 1 + 1 = 5.
Yeah. Definitely. In many ways, and the first time we actually spoke, you mentioned this, right? I was very honored to be speaking with Drake Star after people have sent me the report for the past couple of years. But you said, hey, it's also important to be looking at early stage, right? And in some ways, we're kind of opposite ends of the journey of early stage, and you guys are kind of handling, in many cases, kind of the exit or the whatever that opportunity looks like. From your perspective, what are kind of the one or two big trends that you're most excited about in coming years? And if you could succinctly like put it, why why should people care about sports investing?
No, I mean, we have already talked so much about it, but I'll try to be concise for this
Yeah.
one. So sports as an asset class, I don't think anywhere else this much things are happening.
Yeah.
So that tells you this is an asset class that is going to continue building up. And I think the ecosystem overall is just getting elevated, and
Yeah.
it's going to continue growing.
Yeah.
From my standpoint, as an M&A banker, when I see more and more early stage investing happening, I actually get more excited about it, because
Yeah.
3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, or 2 years down the line, those businesses are going to come and will have the go to market and scale for
Yeah.
me to actually take a look and see if I can enable, the bigger value increase for all of them.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel it's important to look at the trend of M&A to actually understand how the early stage investing is working.
Yeah.
So you can only see those many M&A deals happening in this space because 3 years back, someone invested in those businesses and
Yeah.
now they
Exactly.
are taking the benefit out of it. So
Yeah.
the cycle of early stage investment is very critical, but at the same time, you can actually see that how all that value that they put into the business, how the value creation happened, and it's going to continue happening. There is more and more coming to sports. And if you are in that ecosystem, if you're investing and solving a problem in that ecosystem, whether it's a B2C
Yep.
or a B2B problem, I think there is a very good chance that that business is going to succeed.
Yeah.
And I think a growing concept that is coming into the space is a lot of athletes or ex-athletes. I'm not taking a dig at you, but they're turning into, business people. And,
Yeah.
I would see founders who are ex-athletes or athletes shaping up a nice business. You on the investing side, you are looking at businesses and you have a different perspective than someone who's 10,000 feet away from a sport facility or sports team or the ecosystem overall. So
Yep.
how a normal VC would think versus how you would think about an opportunity, I think there is a very good difference.
Yeah.
Not taking the credit away from, the traditional VCs, they do a
Sure.
great job and they are successful. But I think what some of these, athlete focus or team focus like Bluestone,
Yep.
um, Bobby has been with NBA for 10, 20 years. Now he's bringing in all that experience. Ryan Ventures, they are doing great amount of work. Will Ventures, sorry,
Yep.
which also got investment from Ryan. They are doing a great amount of work investing in early stage to mid stage companies. So I think overall, I feel that the early stage investing is really the lifeline of bringing more innovation and then bringing more consolidation into the space.
Yeah.
And I think right now is the right time when sports as an asset class is the biggest asset class, have the most amount of impact, is red hot. And if you are part of a problem solving, I think it's a great investment opportunity.
Yeah. Amazing. I know I know just from talking to you a couple times how much passion you have for this. I hope everybody else got to hear it. If you're listening, please go check out the Drake Star report. It is publicized, it is public, it's available. Maybe we'll even link to like a QR code or something that people can click on. But I hope you all check it out. Check out Mohit's work. I mean, this is the amount of data in here, the amount of thought is great, and it comes out once a quarter, twice a year.
Once a quarter, yes.
Once a quarter. So like
Mhm.
keep tabs on everything happening in sport. Obviously we're very excited and hopeful of what sport can become, and hope to be one of the firms that's feeding Mo and his team opportunities down the line. So thank you very much for sharing some thoughts with us. It's a fantastic read, and I hope everybody enjoyed listening to somebody talk about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if any of your people want to reach out or talk to me about some more on this, I'm happy to do that. And you can reach me on mohit.pareek@trickstar.com. I think my email would be available anyways outside there. So,
Awesome.
uh,
Awesome. Yeah.
and I'm more excited about what you guys are gonna look at next, and how some of the things you are developing in-house, shape up.
Yeah.
And I mean, we didn't talk too much about your experience, but I think your experience and the way you think about the market is also something that I'm generally very, very, very curious about.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
and I think I come across a few of, people like you who are really talented athletes, but now looking at the businesses side
Yeah.
of things. So I'm super excited what you guys, shape up as, and what you bring in.
Well, I appreciate it. One of the best things about being background sports is it's incredibly collaborative, and like athletes like to work together. And even a lot of the business people that weren't pro level, they played at high school or maybe college level, and like they're just collaborative. So I think a lot of people rowing in the same direction to make this a big industry. So thanks again. Please reach out to Mode if you have any cool stuff to talk about, if you want to learn more, and definitely go find the report. It's fantastic. I want to extend a big thank you to Moet for joining us just as his quarterly report is released. If this is an area of interest for you personally, I'd highly recommend checking out the report for yourself. It is certainly a tool we continue to use as we think about where the sports industry is heading and how that can inform our investment decisions. To wrap up today's presentation, I want to briefly share a bit about Alumni Ventures and our sports fund. Alumni Ventures is America's largest venture firm for individual investors. In the last decade, we have built the firm to over $1.3 billion in managed capital and have invested in over 1,400 unique companies. Within Alumni Ventures, we have launched our sports fund strategy, looking at sports-related companies across human performance, fan engagement, sports media, gaming, and team and league ownership. We are currently in the process of constructing our first portfolio and will begin raising for our second fund soon. Please reach out to our team or me directly at keaton@av.vc if you'd like to learn more. With that, we look forward to hearing from you and continuing to share our thoughts about the sports venture landscape in coming presentations. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.